Perfect. Well, welcome everybody. Happy I Love Yarn Day and welcome to Michael's Community Classroom. My name is Ali W. I'm from Yarn Inspirations and we are here with the fantastic Marley Bird for Knitting 101. We have a great class planned for you today and lots of time to go through everything to get you started with knitting. Just as a reminder, if you have questions throughout the class, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll be helping Marley answer those questions and we'll get to as many as we can.
Yep. All right. You guys ready? Okay. So hi, I see a lot of you from literally everywhere. We have India and Georgia and Los Angeles and Florida and New York. So very happy to have all of you here. I am joining you from Indiana. Allie is in North Carolina and so is Carrie. But this is the power of the internet, right? Is that we all can come together on a really special day called I Love Yarn Day. Yeah, you don't have to sit around with your family and endure a meal or anything like that. You get to sit down with some needles or a hook and some yarn and just create. So we get to have a good time. I do have my camera on gallery view. You guys, I want you guys to keep yours on speaker view so that way you'll be able to be a close up on my hands. The reason I'm telling you this is as we're working along, if I'm like, hey, show me your work and your camera's on, I can kind of glance through and see your work just so you know, like you're not like I can see you when I'm asking. I just want you to be aware of that. There is a pattern that we are going to suggest today. However, I am going to teach you in the manner that I teach all of my beginner knitting classes because I think it's the best way. And we're going to take it step by step, how to cast on your stitches, how to do a knit stitch, which will then create garter stitch fabric. And then we're going to do a purl stitch. And then last but not least, we will see how to combine the knits and purls within one row. That might be a little bit quick, but the video is on replay, which will be good. And then we'll learn how to bind off. Those are the key things that's more than what you need to know to get started knitting. The first two things and then binding off is really all you need, but that's the plan. But here's where we're going to start. Everybody here, everybody pay attention, all right? I don't know if you've tried knitting before or if this is your very first time, but all of you, all of us, we're all going to promise that we're going to give ourselves a little bit of grace and be patient with ourselves because even though I might make it look really easy, you have to remember I've been doing this more than 20 years, whereas you're just picking up your needles or you're just getting used to this. So you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. Your hands don't really know what they are supposed to do. And even though your brain is with it and it's telling your hands and your eyes are telling your hands, do this, your hands are like, what? And it's totally normal. So it's okay if we're working on all this today and you struggle a little bit. It could be that tomorrow you pick it up and all of a sudden it's 100% clear, or it could be a week from today. But overall, we want to make sure that we are kind to ourselves, okay? Give ourselves a chance to learn. All right, I will go as slow as I can. If there's ever a part you want me to review again, make sure you leave it in the chat. Allie will jump in and say, hey, Marley, can you show me that again? We have a little bit of time here, so we should be good to go. And I'm ready to go down to my hands. So here we go, Carrie. All right, are we on the hands? There we go. All right, here we are. These are knitting needles, if you don't know. I have just grabbed some basic Susan Bates knitting needles. Now I'm using size 10. The reason I'm using size 10, honestly, is I liked the color. I thought it would show up well with the green opposed to the color on camera. If that doesn't show up well enough, I can grab another color, but I thought this would show up well. You can use whatever size needles you want to use, okay? We're just practicing, we're doing some gauge swatches, and we're gonna work up just fine, okay? I like to start off with larger needles, maybe a size 8 or larger. What I mean by that, an 8 is a 5 millimeter, a 10 is a 6 millimeter. The reason I start with larger needles and a worsted weight yarn or a 4-ply yarn, or even an Aran weight yarn, it helps you see the stitches a little bit better. So if you are anywhere in the world and you want to pick up some needles and yarn just to get started, this is a good place to start. Okay. You can use aluminum, you can use bamboo, you can use stainless steel. There's all sorts of different needles out there. You just find what works best for you. Now, show of hands, whether you hit the little hand button or you raise your hands. How many of you are crocheters? Any crocheters? Couple crocheters. That's cool. All right. You know how in crochet, you have to chain stitches so that you can start working into them, you know? Well, in knitting, we don't chain stitches, but we're going to cast on stitches onto our needles so we can start working into them. Okay. So here's where we're going to start. I'm going to grab my yarn and we are going to do what's called a knitted cast on. The reason I choose to do a knitted cast on is because it will be a great transition for you to go into knitting in general. And we're going to start off with our slip knot. Hopefully all of you know how to do it, but if not, no big deal. Put the tail of your yarn in the palm of your hand. I like to take my working yarn then and I wrap it around my forefinger and my middle finger. And when I come back up, I cross over, rotate my hand, go underneath the front loop and grab the back loop. Now, yes, that's a long-winded way to talk through this, but this is really, it's the most constructive way I've been able to show people how to do it. So tail of the yarn is in the palm of my hand. Working yarn, I'm just wrapping it around my finger and then I cross it over. So that way, when I rotate my hand over, that crossover, that's the working yarn. So I'm going underneath this one and grabbing that one and then pulling them off. You can see I have a little slip knot right there. Okay. I'm going to place that slip knot onto my needle. Now, here's going to be the first lesson. You guys ready? In crochet, when you have your loop on your hook, it does not count as a stitch. In knitting, when you have your loop on your hook, or on your needle, I'm sorry, it counts as a stitch. Okay, so this right here would be number one. Make sense? That's number one. I see somebody saying they want to do the slip knot once again. I'm going to show you one more time. Even if you guys think about this, you could just wrap it around your yarn or wrap it around, think about wrapping around your fingers. And it's still the same way. It's wrapping as this second wrap were to come here, you want it to go back there. Does that make sense? So I'm wrapping it around my fingers and I'm coming back there so I can go underneath and grab. Hopefully that helps. One more time. Palm of my hand, working yarn around my forefinger and middle finger. When I come back up, I cross over. So that way when I rotate my hand over, I usually will take my pinky and I'll hold that yarn there. Go underneath this loop, grab that back loop and pull it off. Worst case scenario, you guys, you can just create a knot and put it directly on your needle if you need to, but ideally this is what you want. It's called a slip knot. Now, this does not matter if you're left-handed or right-handed. That's the beauty of knitting, is we will be using both of our hands, okay? Hey, Allie, is my camera close enough to my hands? Should I be a little bit closer?
I think it's good.
Good? Okay. I just want to make sure. Like, this is about where I'm going to be, is right here.
I think that's good. If anybody thinks we need it closer, just let us know in the chat.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do this right here. So it doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed because we will be holding our needles in each hand. But you want the needle with the loop on it in your left hand. Okay. Your working yarn, we're going to do what's called the English method, in that we're going to have our yarn in our right hand and we're going to work our stitches. I'm not going to stress about holding this yarn yet. We're just going to do this. First things first, you'll notice that the needles that you're using are a little bit tapered towards the tip of the needle. When we create our stitches, we want to make sure that our stitches make their way to the back part of this needle. We don't want to keep our loops up here at the tip because that tip is smaller than this back half. So if we keep all of our loops here, they're never going to fit all the way on our needle. Your needle size, the number of your needle, the 6 millimeter or the 5 millimeter, that's just telling you the size of the needle itself. So it's going to help you maintain the stitch size. So as we create our stitches, We want them to get back here on our needle. And we want to make sure we're controlling our stitches. We don't want them to fall off. So you have to find a comfortable way, and this will come with time, to kind of maintain control of your stitches. I like to take my pointer finger and hold it on there when I'm doing this way. Take your right hand needle, and if I were to hold it like this, see how this looks like a T? I'm going to take my right hand needle and going from the left side, I'm going to go underneath that loop and push it through. Essentially, all I've done is I just push that needle through that loop. That's all I've done. I'm going to show you again. The loop is on my needle. Here's my right hand needle. I'm going to go right into that loop. Looks like a T, right? Using my left hand, I like to hold both needles. So I just have control of the needles. Okay. I'm going to grab my yarn here. And crocheters, this is different than crochet. We're going to go the opposite direction. In crochet, we would take our yarn and wrap around our hook like this. In knitting, we want to go around our hook in this manner. Okay, so if this is pointing up at 12 o'clock, I'm going from 12 o'clock to 11 to 9 to 6 around and going back. Does that make sense, everybody? I'm going to show you again. Picked up my yarn, wrap it around my needle. This wrap is going to become my new stitch when I pull it through this loop. Now, here's the trickiest part, and this is where we're all going to remember to give ourselves grace. We have to maintain control of this yarn. We have to keep some tension on it. So I'm not stressing about how to hold your yarn yet, okay? Just grab your yarn and in some manner, grab your right hand needle again so that you have tension on that yarn. And then we're going to pull that right hand needle out of that stitch that we went into. I'm going to show you again. You'll notice I'm keeping the needle tips very close together. So as I bring the right hand needle out and underneath, I'm still essentially touching the needle with the tip of my right hand. So it pulls that through. You guys see that? I'm going to show you again. Needle into the stitch, yarn wrapped around the needle, needle comes out the stitch. So that's the yarn I had wrapped on it. I'm going to show you again. Needle into the stitch, yarn wrapped around the needle, and then I take the right hand needle out of that stitch. So now I have this loop right here. I'm going to take my right hand needle and I'm essentially going to extend that loop. So I'm just going to kind of pull that loop so it gets a little bigger. You see how it gets a little bigger? And then I'm going to take my left hand needle, swivel around and scoop up that loop and put it on. And now I have two. We're going to repeat that process, only this time we're going to go into the new loop. So whether you're going into the new one or you're going into the first one we did, it's the same thing. I'm going to go into that stitch on my left hand needle, wrap the needle, the right hand needle with my yarn, pull that right hand needle out at the same time pulling that yarn wrap through, extend, swivel, and scoop. And then when you put it on, you pull that yarn a little bit and it tightens it up. We're going to go very slow with this, okay? In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. And that swivel and scoop is important because it puts the stitches on your needle correctly, all right? I know this can be very frustrating, you guys. If you need to take it off and start over, totally okay. We can do that, all right? So here we are, slip knot, working yarn in the palm of my hand, or I'm sorry, tail in the palm of my hand, working yarn around my forefinger and middle finger, come back up and cross over. Rotate my hand, underneath the front loop, grab the back loop and off. Place that on my needle. Now the needle with that loop goes into my left hand. And my goal here is I'm going to start making loops that I can then put onto here. So I go into that stitch, wrap around my right hand needle, maintain tension on this. It'll help you pull that loop through, or this wrap through, because now I'm going to take my right hand needle and I'm just pulling that through that stitch and pulling it out. Then I extend it so that way I get a chance to swivel my left and scoop it up. If I were using a crochet hook, think about this. This is what's really happening. I'm going into my stitch, I'm wrapping around, and imagine if your knitting needle had that hook on it where you could just come and it would just grab that yarn, and you're just pulling it out, extend, swivel, and scoop. Can you see that? So imagine this was a knitting needle. I'm going into the stitch, going around my knitting needle, and as I bring my knitting needle out, this hook is helping me pull that through, but you don't need the hook. That's why the knitting needle works. Swivel and scoop. I don't know if that helps you. For me, that helped me understand what I was doing because it just seems so foreign. But really, I mean, even if you were to think about your fingers, think about, I'm putting my finger into this stitch, right? And then I'm coming around, I have that wrap, and I just want to like hook that wrap and pull it through, extend, swivel, and scoop. It's the same thing. Only we're going to use our knitting needle to do it. So I'm in, round, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. When you scoop, are you going through the bottom loop? Yeah, I'll show you again. So I'm in, around. You'll notice that I will usually take my finger and just kind of sort of guide. It's like I'm guiding my yarn. Come out. So I extend. When I swivel and scoop, it's like I'm coming underneath this to come up. Like I do not want to just go down like this. Can you guys all see that? I do not want to just go down here. I want to go underneath it and scoop up. So I do not want to do this. I want to go underneath it and scoop up. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. When you're tightening your stitches, you want to make sure that they can move on your needle. You want to make sure they're down here to this portion of your needle. And you want to make sure that the stitches are about the size of your needle. You don't want them too tight. You don't want them too loose. You want them about the same size as your needle. All right. We're doing great on time. So don't stress if you have not gotten this yet, because here's what I'm going to do. Everybody take your knitting. Take it off. We're going to start again. Oh, I know. Oh, Ursula just gave me the worst look. You guys, it's okay. Guys, if you don't take this off and start over, you're going to forget how to do this completely. So just trust me on this. Take it off. It's all right. What you had is not a masterpiece. Stretch your fingers out. We got this. We got this. I promise. Catherine, you got it. I promise. You got it. Okay. Got our knitting needles. We're going to start with our slip knot. We're going to put it on our needle. Take the tail of our yarn, wrap around our forefinger and a middle finger, cross over, rotate, underneath, grab, and off. As you guys come up, as you work on this on time, you're going to come up with faster ways to do that. But like I said, it's the easiest one for me to show you. Put that slip knot on your needle. Where does this needle go? In your right hand or your left hand? Left hand. That's right, Pam. All right. Left hand. Working yarn. I have it over here towards my right. This time, I'm going to tell you guys how I hold my yarn. All right. Now that we've worked through just kind of playing with it. For me, I like to take my pinky and I essentially I come and I grab my yarn like this and I wrap it around my pinky and come up. I don't know why. Over time, I have found that just works. Sometimes I'll go like this. I have friends who will just go like this. I have friends who will pinch it. I have friends who go like this. you will find a way that works best for you. All right. So kind of play around with it. And what's going to happen, you guys, is one day you're going to realize that you're not thinking about it anymore because your body just naturally does it. So for me, I usually, I go like that. That's how I hold mine. Grab our right hand needle. Same process. In the stitch, around our needle, out the stitch, extend, swivel, and scoop, and put it on. Our goal here, we want to get 10 stitches, okay, guys? In the stitch, around our needle, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. In, around, 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 out, extend, swivel, and scoop. 7. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. When I take the needle out, the string just collapses. Alicia, try and keep better tension on the actual yarn itself. The more tension, the more you can keep it taut on your needles. That will help. So when you go in and you take this, I'm holding some tension to it, and I wrap it around my needle. I'm keeping this nice and tight. See how I'm never letting that get real loose on my right hand needle? I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm trying. And so that way, when I pull my right hand needle through, it's still nice and taut next to that. So when I extend, swivel, and scoop, I'm controlling the tension. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. All right. Is it really necessary to remove the right hand needle before the next chain? No, it is not necessary. If you, and what that question is here is, this is what she or he is asking, is going like this. It's just, it's a matter of adjusting, right? It's a matter of just kind of adjusting down like this. Of course, as I'm teaching you how to do it, I have to remove it to kind of reset. You guys are doing great. I know this can be frustrating. Trust me, I know it. And I know I make it look easy. It's just one of those things. As you practice, it will become easier. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm going to undo mine and do them again because I don't see anybody here who has all 10. You're good. You guys keep going. I want you to keep your 10. I think is Neves, you're doing great. It looks good. No, it looks good. You're doing fantastic. You're doing fantastic. Mary, it looks like you're trying to get things going. That's good. Maureen, give me a thumbs up. You doing good? All right. You doing good? You got this. It's going to take practice. Oh, that's great, Pam. Very good. Maria, yours looks good too. Danielle, I see you working really hard. You're doing awesome. Pamela, yours is awesome. You guys are doing really good out there. Honestly, this is the first step is always the hardest, right? All right, so I'm going to do mine again to get my 10 on here. And if you can't get 10, guys, if you can get 5, that's fine too. You do what you can do best. And if you don't get any on this entire class and you just practice it the whole class, the beauty is that these classes are recorded so you can watch it again on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel too, where I teach beginner knitting all the time. So you can always go there if you like my teaching style and check out even more videos or get reminded of stuff. Like there's a lot of opportunities here. Okay. I'm going a little bit faster here just so I can try and show you guys what it would look like pretty much in real time. And as I mentioned at the start, this is called a knitted cast on. The reason it's called a knitted cast on, and you guys are going to realize this in a minute, is you're essentially doing a knit stitch, and then we're putting those stitches on our needle. 2, 6, and okay. So there are a lot of different cast-ons out there in the world. This is not the only one, but this one is going to transition you into working a knit stitch, and you're going to see how that works here in just a second. All right, you guys ready? Selena, are you ready? You look like it. All right. So I have my 10 stitches. If you don't have 10, if you have 5, or if you're still working on the cast on, keep doing it. Don't fret. At this time, this is where your knitting technique is going to continue on. Anytime you're ready to start a new row, we're going to start a new row. Your needle with the stitches on it goes in your left hand. Your empty needle will always be in your right hand, okay? Because we will be knitting off of this needle and they are going to transition onto this needle. So when we get to the end of the row, all of the stitches will then be over here. This needle will be empty and then we'll switch needles, okay? That's the ultimate goal here. So you guys ready to do your first knit stitch? Okay, we're gonna go into the stitch just like we were doing. We're gonna go around our needle just like we were doing. We're going to come out of that stitch just like you were doing. Only this time, the stitch that we went into right here on the left-hand needle, we're going to let it drop off the left-hand needle, and we're going to keep this one on our right-hand needle. So if you want to put your thumb onto this one that you just made so it doesn't go anywhere, you can do that. But we're going to push that stitch that we were into in the left-hand needle, push it off, and boom. Don't tighten anything. Don't spread your needles apart like this. Don't do that. Just drop it off. Now we have this, okay? We want to keep our knitting needles as kind of close together as you can. You don't ever want to knit like this. You want to keep them real relaxed. And we're going to go into the next stitch. So I go in from left to right, wrap my right hand needle, come out the stitch. Now this one here, I'm going to drop off and I have a new stitch on my right hand needle. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. I want you guys to notice something. Notice I have my stitches up here towards the tip of my needle. It's easier to control them up here, okay? We don't get to control many things in life, but we get to control our stitches. You can use your thumbs to kind of hold those stitches so they don't jump off the needle before they're ready. We are not playing lightsabers. We are not going to hold our needles down here. We're always going to be right up here into the action, okay? We're going to be holding our stitches. And it's okay to put your thumb there. It's okay, like if you're going to put your finger there, whatever works for you. You just want to make sure that these are not going to fall off, and these aren't falling off until they're ready. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, yarn around my needle, come out the stitch and off. In, around, out, off. See how this is just like the knitted cast on? We're just not swiveling and scooping. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. Allie, it looks like there's somebody in the waiting room. In, around, out, off. When you get to the last one, in, around, out, off. Ta-da, look at that. When you look at your work over here, it's okay if it looks like it's a little twisted up. Like it looks like it's a little twisted up. We're just going to take a moment, just straighten it out. Make sure it looks a little straightened out here. And then we're going to take this needle, because it has all the stitches on it we're going to work into, and we're going to put it into our left hand. Grab our right hand needle and get ready to go to the next row. But let's look at what we've created, okay? I'm gonna put this back in my right hand. So the first off. So this is where we are. This is where we created. If you look at it real closely, you're gonna see that there are some nice little V's on there. just like if you were looking at knitted fabric, you know how you have the nice smooth side of knitted fabric, you have those V's. And then on the other side of knitted fabric, you have what's called reverse stockinette, where you have all those bumps, okay? When you are knitting, the knit stitch on the public side, when you're doing stockinette, will always look like V's. The knit stitch, as you're knitting it, puts the top of the stitch you're working into is getting pushed to the back, and that's what creates that purl bump. That purl bump right there, that's the top of the stitch that you worked into that creates that purl bump. So where am I going with this? Here's where I'm going with this. When you are knitting, these are quarters. These are American quarters. If you look at this side of the quarters, maybe I'll go like this. If I were to show you quarters like this, and you're looking at heads, what's on the other side? Tails. That's right. We have tails. Okay. We have tails. Now let's think of this in a different way. We're going to think of these as we're looking at knits. What's on the other side of knits? A purl. So as I turn this, those are my purls. So in my head, I think of the heads, those are my knits. And I know if I'm looking at knits, if this was like a see-through hand and I was able to look at the other side, I know I'd be seeing purls on the opposite side. Does that make sense so far? Yes? All right. This is why I'm telling you this. When we take our stitches, we just finished knitting, and we put them over here in our left hand, what do we see here? We see purls. And why do we see purls? Because we're on the back side. You guys following me here? All right. So this is important because when we go to knit this row, you're not going to see V's again, because it's what we're creating is called garter stitch. When you knit every row and you're turning your work back and forth, you're going to get what's called garter stitch. It's these ridges. I wish I had something here that had garter stitch on it. I don't. I have nothing here that's garter stitch. But you're going to get these ridges, and I want you to understand why you're getting them. It's because we're turning our work back and forth. If I had our quarters here, and I have this side is my knit side, I turn my work and I'm working back this way. As I'm looking at this, I'm going to see the purl, even though I was working knits because I turned my work. Then I turn my work again, I'm working knits back, I'm going to see a knit. Does that make sense? Even though I've knit each time, I'm going to see a knit, I'm going to see a purl, I'm going to see a knit, even though I knitted and then I turned my work. So when I turn my work, I'm now looking at purls, but I'm knitting, right? So I get to the end of the row, I turn my work. So now I'm looking at purls on that row. These, I'm looking at those knits again, and I'm knitting. So you're going to create what's called garter stitch. Okay. So as we go into this next row to knit, we do not want to go into those purl bumps. Those purl bumps are they're just there standing alone. You want to make sure you're only going into the stitch that's on the needle. Okay. Because this is where a lot of beginners will accidentally increase their stitches. They will work into that purl bump. Okay. Here's the other thing. This is very, very, very important because a lot of beginners make this mistake. How many of you are like, well, my stitches down here are really loose. How do I tighten those up, right? So the first thing you tend to do, you're like, oh, okay, well, look, oh, I just tightened it up. It looks so much better now. It's all nice and tight. Everything's great. But what you've just done is you've pulled up this loop from below to make it look tighter. And now you've made it look like there's two stitches there. And so then what happens is you guys work into each one of those legs, you've now increased your stitches. So even though this is loose, it's okay. When we're doing garter stitch, I want you to make sure you can still see that purl bump there. Okay. All right. I'm going to show you how to tighten those stitches. Don't worry. All right. So first thing, as we're knitting, before we didn't have to stress about this, but this is going to be important. So I want to make sure you know this. When you knit, your yarn is in back. It's behind the needle. It's away from me, because when I go to purl, my yarn's going to be over here. Okay. I like to think of it as If I am purling, that means I'm going to have these bumps towards me. So I want my yarn towards me. When I'm knitting, I want my bumps, they're going to be on the opposite side, right? They're my tails. So I think of it as, okay, so my yarn has to be over there. You won't have to think of it that way forever, but if that helps you now, great. Same process. I'm going to go into the stitch, yarn around my needle, come out the stitch and off. Now here's the little trick to tighten up your stuff. Your yarn here that you have tension on, just wiggle your right hand needle and kind of pull on your tension yarn just a little bit, and it tightens up your stitch beneath. Give a little wiggle and a little tug. A wiggle and a tug at the start of your row tightens things up just a little bit. And then we carry on. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. As you're doing this, I want you to notice I'm keeping my yarn in my right hand relatively like below my knitting needle. Can you see what I mean here? I'm keeping my working yarn down here. I'm not keeping my finger up here. And I want you to know why. When I keep my yarn down here, it allows that stitch with that purl bump to rest in the place it's supposed to. When I keep my yarn up here, or I pull my yarn up here, see how it pulls that stitch, it pulls that purl bump up? It does exactly what I was telling you not to do at the start of the row. So if you find that you're knitting really tight, it could be that you are finishing your stitch and you're pulling this too tight. And so it's pulling up the stitch beneath. Just keep your hands real relaxed and keep the working yarn. I like to keep it essentially like below my needles. And this is stuff that's going to come with time, you guys. I'm just trying to share some tips that you might not get it all right now, but if you rewatch this, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. But that tends to be one of the reasons people will knit too tight, is they are tightening up their working yarn. All right. You guys see this? All right, so I see that there's a request for me to show how to do the first row. I'm gonna show you on here. I'm gonna show you just real quickly. So I reached the end of the row. Okay, you see what I mean about, you see how you get this, like all these little purl bump looks? If I were to extend this, you could see the V behind it, but this is a garter ridge. That's what that's called. It's garter ridge. I'm gonna put this into my left hand. Again, I see purl bumps, right? Because I'm looking essentially at the tails. If you, anybody who's just knitting, don't do this. This is for the people who are at the beginner stage again. If you have your slip knot on there, when you go into the stitch, yarn over your hook, your needle, come out the stitch, extend, swivel, and scoop, and put that on. And you just keep repeating that. All right, we're at the end of the row. Our stitch is a little loose at the end. That's okay, because I know that once I knit it, if I give a wiggle and a tug, it'll tighten it all up. I want to make sure I see my purl bump there. I want to go only into the stitches that are on my needle. And I want to make sure that my working fabric here, it's essentially flowing down from my needles. I don't ever want to work with the fabric up like this. I want to make sure that the fabric is working down from my needles. You got this, patience. You got it. I know they fall off. It's all right, Ursula. I know it stinks. You just get a chance to be that more active and practice that much more. I mean, think of all of this content you're getting from this wonderful class. It's all right. If the stitches fall off, you guys, it happens. It happens. Just try and control them the best you can. And you know, I mean, if that's the worst thing that happens, it's all right. We're just practicing a little piece here. Derek, you look like you're doing a really good job over there. You got it right there. Wrap that right hand needle. You guys are doing awesome. I promise it gets easier with time. Just like anything, you have to create that muscle memory. You have to create that like, I want to call it like a neuron path from your brain to your eyes to your hands, so that they all end up working together. Just takes a little time. I don't know if you've noticed, every time I finish a row, I always take a second and I just pull my fabric down just to make sure everything's nice and neat. It just helps me with keeping things consistent. And we're just going to keep knitting here. Okay. We're going to keep knitting here for a little bit. Selena, you look like you're doing great. Looks good. You got this, you guys, I promise. Just takes a little practice. I know that's like the worst thing you want to hear, right? Practice makes perfect. No, practice helps you get better. Here we go. Pam, it looks good. Looking good, Pam. Yeah. The biggest thing with knitting, y'all, is just kind of, it's essentially controlling your needles, making sure that they don't fall out. Even if they do, once you understand the anatomy of the stitches, you'll be able to just essentially put your needles back in, Ursula. It'll be a lot easier. But here at the start, just it's easier just to rip out and start over. Turning my work. All right, I'm going to give another little sort of anatomy of the stitch lesson. Just keep on knitting, so nothing new here. One thing you're going to notice as you're knitting, these stitches, as they're resting on your needle, if you are wrapping your yarn in the manner I'm teaching you, if you think of my forefinger as this front leg of the stitch and the back leg of the stitch is my middle finger, when they are straddling your knitting needles, your forefinger is ahead of your middle finger. So the front leg should be in front of your back leg. If for some reason your stitches are resting on your needle and they kind of look like this, you're wrapping your yarn the opposite direction I want you to. All right. So for example, let me show you this one. This one is resting on the needle in the way I want it. See how the front leg, it's like it's stepping forward. It wants to be knit. It's ahead of the back leg. Can you see what I mean there? Okay. So it wants to be knit. It's stepping forward. I'm putting my needle into that leg, wrapping, and I come out and off. This one's the same way, but I'm going to purposely change it so you can see what it would look like if it was opposite. You see how that back leg is forward now? The back leg is stepping forward. If I went to try and knit this front leg, it's like fighting me. It's like, no, I'm the second in line. This front leg is there, or the back leg is stepping forward. If your stitches are on your needle like this, that means you are wrapping your yarn. Instead of going around, you're going like this. So I want you to make sure you're going around. Like think of it as like it's the longer way around. If your stitches are like this and the back leg is forward, stick your needle through that back leg instead of the front, and it'll correct the way the stitch lies. The reason this is important is if you were to knit through the front leg, even though it's not forward, if it's not stepping forward, it will twist the stitch and it will make those V's. It'll look like they're crossed. It'll look like their legs are crossed over. And you don't want that. You want the V's to be open. Checking y'all out. Okay. Derek looks like he's typing something. Got a question, buddy? Okay. I have 4 stitches. Yay. That's so good. Stephanie, it's all right. Just keep giving it a try. You might not have any stitches yet, but you just keep trying. How do you get them on the second stick? So I'm going to start here. You ready? Okay. I got to do it with my other hand. Remember, we're going to use this knitting needle to essentially, it's like we're using it as a like we're going to grab it to pull it back through, right? So we have to keep our tension here on this yarn. So when I go in, you're in the T position, go in. Yep. All right. Now with your left hand, I want you to hold both needles. Okay. Right hand. You're going to have your yarn over here, wrap it around your right hand needle, and then come back down and grab your right hand needle and keep this tension. Okay. Is the yarn right there tight around your needle? Yes. Okay. I want you to just swivel that needle through the best you can to just pop it out of that stitch you went into on the left. Like you can make that left hand stitch real big and just pull it through. Is it through it? Think of it this way. Think of it this way. You went into that stitch. You went into that stitch. You're grabbing some yarn, and we just want to pull that yarn through. You're almost there. I see you in it. We just need to, let me see here. So we're at the T, we've wrapped. Can you see it? Like there's the left-hand needle where my thumb is. That's the stitch that I'm in with my right-hand needle. If I were to take the tip of my right-hand needle and just like rest it on the tip of my thumb here and just guide my thumb back through that stitch, see how my yarn is underneath it? It's really just going to take some practice. Once it clicks, Derek, you're going to be like, oh, this is great. Yarn around it, and then you just swiveling it through. And then pull that right-hand needle through the stitch. So I'm going to call this the door. You went in the front door. You went around the needle. So now we have to take this needle out the door. So bring that needle out the door towards you. So in the door, wrap your yarn around it, and then come out the door. Bring that yarn you just wrapped through out the door. Right out the door. Are you out? You're almost there. Did you get it? Okay, is it in front of the needle? Try it again. In the door, wrap the needle, come out the door, and then the door falls off the needle. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. Pam, yes, we will talk about counting rows. Maria is stuck on row 2. So row 2 is, you mean after your cast on row? So you have all of your stitches on your knitting needle, and now we're just going to knit, Maria. So this is exactly what I'm doing right here. So I'm at the end of my row. I'm going to do it again. We're just doing the exact same thing. Rotate. So this would be, Maria, this would be you. You have your stitches on your needle. You go into that first stitch, wrap around your right-hand needle, just like you were doing before. Pop out that stitch, just like you were doing before. Only this time, instead of extending and swiveling and scooping, what we have popped out, that loop right there, that is our new stitch. So this old stitch, we don't need it. So we let it fall off. And then we do it again. Go into the next stitch, yarn around your needle, out, let that stitch fall off. In, around, out, off. Sorry, I'm trying to stay in camera, guys. We are not making anything right now. We're just doing a swatch to get used to our stitches. And honestly, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think a scarf is the worst first project ever for beginners because it's the never-ending project. As a beginner, you want to have some instant gratification. So start off with like a washcloth or even a headband. All right. Liz says, using my pointer finger to hold my stitches almost feels like I'm stretching out my stitches too much. But if I do not do that, my stitches are too tight. Is this the case of practice makes perfect? Yes and no, Liz. So here we are. I'm guessing you said using my pointer finger almost feels like I'm stretching my stitches. If your stitches are tight, the reason they're tight, it's for twofold. Either you're keeping your stitches down here at the tip and you're making this loop the same size as the tip, or after you knit, you're taking your yarn and you're pulling it like this. I want you to, if you guys can see this. This is the natural shape of a stitch, right? It's almost like a teardrop, but it's the same size as my knitting needle. The stitch underneath it needs to be the same size as my knitting needle too. But when I take my working yarn, which is attached to this loop, and I pull it up, can you see how it extends the stitch beneath and it shortens up the stitch on my needle? So instead of this stitch on my needle going all the way around my needle like this, it's completely shortened. Like that's the size of my stitch right there. So as you're knitting, you want to keep this yarn down here. You don't ever want to like tighten it up by tightening it like this, because that brings everything up. See, watch, if I tighten it, it brings everything up from the beneath. I don't want that. You don't want to tighten those stitches, and that's what's creating tight stitches. So when I was talking about making sure that my yarn, as I'm knitting, I keep it down here, not up here to tighten it. I keep it down here to keep those stitches nice and comfortable. Yes, you can make a dishcloth. Now, here's the deal. The pattern that I think they're going to give you guys is for a kind of an intricate, more intricate than where you are right now. You literally could just get some lily sugar and cream yarn and just do this stitch, this knit stitch back and forth, which is called what? Garter stitch. You could just do that back and forth and create a dishcloth and garter stitch. You get some nice little nubbies on it. And believe it or not, you guys, they're fantastic. They work so great. Like just cast on like 30 stitches and just work back and forth till it's about square, bind off, and you have a dishcloth. And then you can start something new. Do not start on a scarf. Scarf is the worst first project. All right, I'm gonna start again. Here we go. I'm knitting. We're gonna spend another 8 minutes on this knit stitch, okay? I'm going in, around, out, and then off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. Again, I'm keeping my yarn down here. You see what I mean, Maria, about holding it down real, it's like beneath my knitting needle. I don't have it up here. I keep my yarn down here, and it makes it so that those stitches are the right size. In, around, out, off. Derek, keep working on it, buddy. You're going to get it, I promise. In, around, out, off. Catherine, it looks good. In, around, out, off. 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 You guys are going to be like repeating that all day long. It's your earworm. All right. Allie just put a link to the Dippity Doo knit dishcloth pattern in the comments. Like I said, y'all, if you just even want to start though with just garter stitch, that is perfectly fine. All right, let's take a look at what we have. Keep working if you want to keep working, that's totally fine. What you see here, or you see these garter ridges where it looks like, it's almost looks like it's 2 sets of purls, right? It's not 2 sets of purls, but it's 2 rows. Each garter ridge counts as 2 rows. So as I was looking at, if I'm looking at this, I usually don't count my cast on row as a row. So then I would be like, this is 2 rows, 2 rows, 2 rows. And then this would be this, that's 2 rows also, because I'm getting ready to start the next one. Okay. You look at the opposite side, you have the garter ridges, they count as 2 rows. Remember this one down here, I have my cast on edge right there as well. The reason I know it's the cast on edge is because I can see those V's down there because I did 2 sets of knits right on top of each other without turning my work. But, so first things first, what you've just done, the cast on and then learning to knit, the only thing you would need to learn to be a complete knitter is how to bind off. And all that means is how to make it so that these loops don't go away. All right. So that is called a bind off. So everything you need to know how to be a knitter is you're almost done. But why not learn how to purl real quick? Okay. Because it's similar action to the knit in that we're going into a stitch, we're yarning over our needle and we're pulling out the stitch. It's just a matter of the direction we're putting our needle in. All right. So I'm going to show you how to purl here. Okay. You guys ready? All right. If you're not ready for this, don't freak out. It's okay. You can still keep knitting and just come back and watch this later. That's totally all right. When we knit, where is our yarn? It's in back of our needles, right? Our yarn is in back of our needles. That when we purl, we want our yarn in front of our needles. All right. So you want it to in the front to start with. If you put it to the front afterwards, you're going to create extra stitches and we don't want that. So my yarn is in front of my needles. When we knit, we go into the stitch from left to right to go in like this. When we purl, but when we do that, right, when we do that, our knitting needle is back here to get our yarn, which is usually back here and everything's great. But our yarn is up here. So we want to take our knitting needle and we're going to go from right to left through that same leg. And we're essentially pulling our needle up here towards our yarn that's up here, right? You guys with me so far? So I'm coming in this way. Here's my yarn. And you're going to be tempted to go around your needle like this. All right. So I'm trying to figure out I went in here. You're going to be tempted to go around your needle in this way because it just seems logical. I want you to go the longer way around though. The reason I want you to go the longer way around is it makes the stitches sit on your needle the correct way that we want them to the next row. So we put our needle in, take your yarn, we're going to wrap it essentially going over top of our knitting needle and back down. Hold your yarn, grab your needle, same sort of motion. We're just going to grab that yarn over our needle and pull it back through that stitch and let that stitch jump off. I'm going in, over the top, back down, out and off. In, over the top, back down, out and off. In, over the top, back down, out and off. So it's the same motion as far as I'm still grabbing the yarn. I'm just going in a different way. I'm coming into the stitch this direction because my yarn is over here, over the top of my needle. That's my right hand needle. Coming back down and holding my needle, keeping tension. I'm going to come back out of the stitch. So there's that yarn over that I had. Now I just let my stitch jump off the left hand needle. In, over top, back down, out and off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. When I'm done with this row, because I was doing purls, what do I see here? I see purls. Those would be my tails, right? Those would be the tails, which means when I put this over here, am I going to see heads? Yes. So when I put this over here and I stretch my fabric, look at that. I'm seeing those V's there now. Those are my heads because the backside of a purl is a knit. The backside of a knit is a purl. So if we wanted to keep this fabric like this, right, this stockinette fabric, when I turn my work and I'm looking at these knits here, I'm going to knit them. So even though I just purled, now I'm going to knit back. So we know how to do this. We've been doing this all along. I go into the stitch, yarn over, out, and off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off, 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 in, around, out, off. All right, just finished knitting. I see all my heads there, right? All those nice V's. I know when I put this into my left hand, I'm going to see all my purls. Seeing all these purls. And this fabric up here that I'm creating is different than this fabric down here. Down here, these are ridges because they're all knit rows. Up here, I'm creating what's called reverse stockinette because they're all purls on the backside of a bed of knits. So I'm over here on the purl side. I'm working stockinette stitch. So I know I'm going to purl. So I bring my yarn forward. My needle goes in from right to left. My yarn, I want to go around the long way, around my right hand needle the long way. Pop out and off. Somebody's asking if you have to hold the yarn. You have to find some way to keep a tension on the yarn. I have friends who don't hold the yarn at all. I find it easier to hold the yarn to maintain tension, but that's really just something that's going to come with time. You're going to find a way to hold the yarn that's relaxing to you. Like for me, guys, honestly, I'm more comfortable holding my yarn in my left hand. So purling with my yarn in my right hand like this is actually very tricky for me. So as I talk you guys through it, I'm talking myself through it as well, because I hold my yarn in the opposite hand. It's the same movement. I just hold the yarn in the opposite hand. Here we go. Just a reminder, I've done several beginner knitting 101 classes for Michaels on their YouTube channel. I have beginner classes on my own YouTube channel, walking through like step by step. I even taught my mom how to knit, you guys. She never held knitting needles before, and she learned to knit with me on camera. Like you guys get to see her hands like shake as she's knitting, like for real, like it's the real deal. All right, so I just finished purling. I'm looking at purls. So when I turn my work, I'm going to look at those knits. Look how pretty they are. And see how the base of them, the V itself, it's not twisted around at all. That's beautiful, Pam. You're doing a good job. Okay, I'm going to kind of pause here and look at the comments real quick. Allie, how are we doing?
We're doing good. Let me see if there's any questions.
Let's see here. All right, I'm going to grab a drink of water real quick. You guys are doing awesome. Look at you, Patricia. Look at that. Girl, you're knitting. That's so good. I'm so proud of you. Oh my gosh.
A couple great
Laura,
questions.
Look at Laura. She's doing good.
Oh my gosh.
They're all showing. I'm like, this is great. You guys are doing awesome. Okay, go ahead.
So a few people have asked, like, what happens if they either drop a stitch or they realize they messed up and they're down the row?
So, all right. So let's talk about, that's tricky, right? Because dropping a stitch it's one of those things. It's like a knitting 201 class because you have to understand the anatomy of how the stitches work. Here's going to be my biggest piece of advice. If you drop a stitch, like say, here, I'm going to go like this. Let's say you're knitting along and all of a sudden you noticed, put these back on here. You say you notice that there's like this stitch falling down, like a run in your pantyhose, right? And you're like, what in the heck? What do I do? What happens? Like grab yourself like even a bobby pin. You could grab yourself a bobby pin and stick it through the loop that's running away, just so that it stops. And then what I would do, honestly, find my video on fixing mistakes and let me walk you through how to do it, because it's more than the time we have here. But stop it. That's the first thing to do, is just stop it from running away. Because once you stop it, you can fix it from there. Because all this is, knitting, guys, it's just a grid. We just have this loop and we're pulling it through these loops to create the loop on our knitting needle. But essentially, once you stop it, you can then go back with a crochet hook. Let me just grab another crochet hook. And essentially just grab the bars that it has pulled through and just pull it through your loop and then put it back on your knitting needle. So for this example, I'd have to move these over and then put this back on the needle. I mean, I know I just did that really fast, but my whole reason there is that it can be fixed. Like, all is not lost if you drop a stitch. If your needles fall out like this, okay, and maybe half of them fall off like that, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. First thing to do is take your knitting needles and you want to put them back in these loops and try and work towards where the yarn is. So for this one, I don't care how the loops are oriented. I just want to put my needle back in the loops. I'm just going to get them in the loops towards where the working yarn is. So I know that that goes that one. Grab the other needle. I'm just going to put them back in the loops. If I drop one, it's all right. All right. So now they're all back in the loops and you're like, okay, but now my yarn is over here. Like, my yarn is attached to my left-hand needle. Well, when we knit, where should our yarn be and we're in the middle of knitting, we're knitting off of this needle onto this needle. Where is our working yarn? It's on this needle. So what this tells you is, okay, this all fell out, but the row that it's on is actually on this side, because here's my working yarn, right? And I can keep working on. Now, if that's too confusing to you, here's what you do. Get all your stitches in there, find where your working yarn is, and then just let each one of those fall off. Take the yarn out so that you get a new loop and put that on. So that way, when you get to the end, all of your stitches, you'll be on the same row, no matter what. So, like, I'm just letting the loops fall off on purpose, taking that out so I get a free loop, popping it on. And then here's the last one, it's that one there. So now my yarn is at the end of my needle, right? And it's at the end of my needle. My stitches are over here, which means I have to move them over here. Same sort of thing. I'm ready to go my left hand. Now, as you do this, you do want to make sure that all of your loops, that the front leg is facing forward. If you come to a stitch that it's not that way, just take it off and turn it around. Like, I think all of these are the correct way. And I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened that way. But let's just say this was like this, where the back loop was forward. You literally just do it that. You just take it off and pop it around. You just want to make sure that that front leg is forward. Does that help everybody? I'm going to purl this row with my yarn in my opposite hand real quick, so it doesn't take me forever. Let's see here. Okay, so that was helpful. That's good. That was magical. It is. It does feel like magic. Wait till you see somebody knit with double points, because that's magical. It's where you feel like a magical unicorn. Where are we at? Don't forget that if the end of the row is a little bit sloppy, it's all right. It's okay. Something that you do need to know, though, is that if you did something in stockinette like this is stockinette. Remember, if you were to knit a whole row, turn your work, purl the whole row, turn your work, knit the whole row, that's the stockinette. That will start to curl on itself. So you can't do a whole scarf in just stockinette without some sort of border stitches. Otherwise, the whole thing's going to look like a big, like, Tootsie Roll, like, and it won't block out. So yeah, it's real pretty like that, but you don't want to do that. All right. If you like this fabric, like the stockinette fabric, and you do want to make a scarf eventually, I actually recommend what is called a 1x1 ribbing. So it's a knit one, purl one ribbing. And I'm going to show you that real quickly because I think it's important to kind of at least get introduced to the idea of adding knits and purls in the same row. So this would technically be where I would put it in a 201 class, but I want to introduce it to you. Okay, guys? When you are adding a knit and purl within the same row, we have to move our yarn between our needles, right? Because when we knit, our yarn is in back, and when we purl, our yarn is in front. So you have to remember to move your yarn between your needles before you do your stitches. So if we were doing a knit one, purl one fabric, I'm going to start off with a knit. So I'm going to knit one stitch. We know how to do that. That's great. Everything's awesome. Now I want to purl one stitch. Well, my yarn's back here. I don't want to bring my yarn over top to bring it to the front because see how that lays that loop right there? You're going to get a hole in your fabric. Whenever you're moving your yarn to go from a knit to a purl, you're going to bring it between your needles and bring it to the front, or between your needles and take it to the back. I'm going to show you again, try and show you this way. So I'm going to purl, so I'm going to come between my needles and bring it to the front. And then I'm going to purl. I need to knit the next stitch. My yarn's already in front. So I go between my needles and move it to the back and knit. Between my needles, move it to the front and purl. Between my needles, move it to the back and knit. If you do not go between your needles, this is what happens. I'm supposed to bring between my needles to the front to purl, right? Let's say I forgot to do that. So I go to purl, my yarn is still in back. I go to purl, you see that little thing right there? That's going to become a yarn over, and you get this funky looking thing happening there. And you're like, well, that doesn't look so funky fresh. Like, what's happening? Well, that looks really funny. Well, congratulations, you just created a yarn over, which is how you create lace. So you're that advanced person. But really, it's just you forgot to move your yarn to the right place. So if you find that that happens, like if you see it and you're on the same row, literally just undo that stitch. Undo that stitch and start over. Just undo it, put that loop back on your left-hand needle, and then do it again. Be like, okay, on this stitch, I knit. How do I know I knit it? See how the purl has that purl bump? And the knit has the V. So I know I just knit that one. So I know I'm ready to do a purl on the next. So between my needles, purl the stitch, come out. Now everything looks back to normal. Between my needles, knit the next stitch. And you would do this all the way down the row. Now the first couple rows I think are the trickiest, but then after that, it's easy because you're going to notice that your knits and purls are stacking up on each other. So if you're looking at a column of knit stitches, you'll know that you're on a knit stitch. If you're looking at a column of purl stitches, you'll know you're on a purl. So right here, I've turned my work. I can see a V there. So I know I start with a knit stitch. Bring my yarn between my needles. I see a purl bump. See my purl bump? So I'm on a purl. See my V right there? It's a little tricky here. It'll be even more obvious on the next row. But if you just alternate knit and purl, it's all right if it's a little loose here at the start. It's one of those things you'll get used to. Let me come back here. Going a little bit quicker. Sorry. And then the purl. All right. So when I turn my work, and you start to see these columns of knit stitches, and then they're separated by like this column of purls or gutter stitches. So you start to get ribbing. So let me get some ribbing here so you can get a look at it. I'm going to put my yarn in the other hand so that I can cruise. All right. So I know you're not going to knit this fast. This is not really for a lesson. It's just so that I can get some ribbing fabric for you. How are we doing on questions, Allie?
We're doing good. Diane said it's hard to remember which way to go around when you purl. Any tips?
So I I often say to myself, I want to go the longest route. So you don't want to take the shortcut and go underneath the needle. So like right here, this is I'm getting ready to purl. I don't want to go underneath my needle like this. That's like the shortcut, right? I want to go over top and around it. I want to take the long way. All right. That's my best tip. Is I think of it, I'm always going the long way around. No shortcuts. And let me get one more row in here. All right. So I've created some ribbing. Ribbing pulls in on itself. You guys know that already, right? As it's ribbing around like the cuff of your gloves or your sweaters or the hem of your sweater, like it pulls in. But as it starts to get created and pulls in on itself, the purl stitches that are between these knits sort of recede. And what's the opposite side of a purl? A knit, right? So if I go like this, oh, look at that. I'm looking at knits over there. So it's reversible, right? If you were to look at all of your ribbing, you'll notice that it's reversible. And because it kind of pulls together, it gives the illusion that it's stockinette. So you could get a stockinette type scarf, even though you're doing ribbing, if you do one by one, and it won't curl on you. It won't become like a Tootsie Roll. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So this combination, this knit and purl combination, that's what you would need to know to create the dishcloth pattern that Allie put into the link below. But just a reminder, if you just did this down here, and sort of a side note, guys, this is just knitting every row. If you were to purl every row, you're going to get garter stitch also. It's the same thing. So whether you were to knit every row or purl every row, you're going to get garter stitch as you're turning your work back and forth. But like if you got yourself some Lily sugar and cream and like cast on 25, 30 stitches and just made it till it's about square and just garter stitch, you'll get yourself a nice little dishcloth. And it'll be a nice instant gratification sort of thing, okay? Or make yourself a little 10-inch or 10-stitch one and make a square and you have like a face scrubby so that you can scrub off your bright red lipstick, all right? So that works really well also. Then this is stockinette. That's where you would knit a row and then purl a row when we're turning our work back and forth. And this is where you combine knits and purls within the same row. And you have to remember for that, you have to bring your yarn back and forth between your needles. All right, you with me so far? Somebody's saying they love the knit and the purl, which is the stockinette. So that's the stockinette. I know this is a bunch of brand new jargon and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but you guys are doing really great. As you're working along, remember you want to make sure that your fabric is flowing down your needles. You want it to like flow down your needles, like Rapunzel's hair down the tower, down the needles. You never want it to be up here like this. As you're knitting, as the work is over here, if it starts to kind of twist on you a little bit as you're knitting, that's okay. Just want to make sure that you start and everything is nice and down, so it flows down from your needles. If your stitches fall out, once again, you can rip back to where you feel like you're at a good starting point, and then just take your knitting needles and just get the stitches back on your needle. That's the first thing. Just get them on there. Because once they're on there, you can correct the way that they're sitting on your needle. You just want to get them on there. And if you get them all onto one needle and you notice that your yarn is there, just take a second, slip them over to where the yarn is. Okay, so now you're there. And then you can just undo each one of those until you can get the yarn to the end of the row for you. Just pop them out. Oh, it's the other direction is what we're doing. Well, either way, you just pop them out if that's easier for you to do. It's called frogging your work. And the last one right there. Your stitches are back in and you're ready to go. If they're twisted on you, you just twist them back the direction you want, because you do not want your purls, or not your purls, you don't want your knit legs down there. You don't want them twisted. You don't want them to look like they are crossed over. You want them nice and open. Ursula, you have some great fabric there. It looks good. It looks good. It looks really good. Catherine, you look like you're doing great. You're really concentrating. I'm looking here. Nicole, you look like you're doing awesome. Now, I will tell you guys, I don't know if you noticed that I was knitting with the yarn in my left hand. If you're a crocheter, and this is a little bit tricky for you to hold your yarn over there, you could always check out continental knitting. It's the exact same action. It's just you're holding your yarn in your other hand. So I'm still going into the stitch the way I told you to. I'm still going around the needle the long way, like I told you to, out the stitch the same way I told you to. It's all the same thing. I'm just holding my yarn in my other hand because I'm a right-handed crocheter. So I'm used to holding my yarn over here. But this is how I continental knit. It's the same stuff, but it's continental. All right, so the very last thing you guys need to know in order to be knitters is how to bind off. Because if I took my needle out of these stitches right now, they would just fall away. So we have to bind them off. We have to lock them in place. For you crocheters, we're essentially like slip stitching along this entire row. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So the first thing you're going to do is knit 2 stitches. And we're binding off knitwise. That's what that means. So we're knitting 2 stitches so that we get 2 stitches over here on our right hand needle. Now what we're going to do is you're going to take your left hand needle, I'm out of fame. Take your left hand needle and we're going to grab that first stitch that we did and have it leapfrog up and over that one and off the needle. So what I do is I go into that first stitch. I'm keeping tension on my second stitch, okay? So it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm just pulling that first stitch up and over the needle and leapfrogging over and off. So now that first stitch is essentially strangling that second stitch, right? So I'm left with 1 on there. I knit 1 more so I can get to 2. Have the back stitch here, jump up and over top of that front stitch. So it's strangling it. It's just like a slip stitch. If you guys are crocheters, think of it as, let's use this. Oh. I have my crochet hook here. I'm going in, around, out, off. It's like I'm pulling that first stitch underneath that second, which is the same thing as saying I'm taking that second and leapfrogging over the first. It's a slip stitch. That's all it is. You guys see it? As I come back here and in, around, out, off, back stitch, up and over the front one. Again, don't get in the habit of tightening those. You don't want those too tight. You want those to be the same size as your knitting needle. Back over the front. When you get down to your last one, you don't have to make a knot in it or anything. You're going to grab your scissors. If you lose your scissors all the time, add a pom-pom. You'll never lose them again. And then on this last one, we're just going to extend it. Just like if we extended it when we were doing the swivel and scoop, just extend it, pull it out, give it a tug, and it locks everything in place. How we feeling? Da, 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 da. I mean, that's like a crash course in knitting, you guys. In an hour and 25 minutes, you got a crash course in knitting. Now, I will tell you, this isn't like painting where, you know, you could be done painting and no matter what it looks like, you have some really great painted fabric. This is going to take some time for sure to practice. All right. Do you want to go to my face real quick? You can bind off purl wise. It's literally just a matter of purling each stitch and having the back stitch jump the front. It's the same motion. It's just instead of knitting the stitches, you're going to purl them. And you can bind off in pattern too, which is if maybe you had 2 knits and then a purl, whatever the stitch is supposed to be, you would treat it however it is and just have that back stitch jump the front stitch. That's how you could do that for sure. So you can bind off purl-wise, you can bind off knit-wise, you can bind off in pattern. And then there's a sewn bind off. There's all sorts of bind offs. Let's see here. Trying to see. Added a stitch somewhere. It's okay. If you added a stitch, keep going. Don't rip out. Just keep going. You're just doing a little practice thing. Big thing to think about is, did you accidentally add the stitch at the first stitch? Because sometimes we'll forget to jump off the needle and then we'll double knit into a stitch. Did you pull up the yarn on the first stitch to accidentally make it look like 2 stitches? Or did you forget to have your yarn in the right place in the back or in the front and accidentally lay a piece of yarn on top of your knitting so that you got a hole? Those are the biggest ways to think about where you could have possibly gained an extra stitch. Let's see here. Do you think it's easy to learn knitting continental style? It clicked much easier for me that way. I think it all depends on the person and how their learning style is. I have taught people who literally could not get continental style in their head, and they were even crocheters. And then the vice versa, people who could not understand the throwing method. There's also like a Norwegian purl. There's a Portuguese way to knit. Like there's different ways to knit. In essence, though, it's all the same motion. It's all just holding your yarn a little bit different. For me, continental clicked for me the easiest when I first started to learn to knit. So it's my preferred. But over the last 17 years I've been teaching knitting, I teach people, those 2 ways and kind of see which one works best for them. That's how that goes. Let's see. There are lots of classes on the Michaels YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. My name is Marley Bird, like the animal, B-I-R-D. You can check out my classes there. Like I said, I did a whole series where I taught my mom how to knit. So if you're interested in that, or I have a whole series, I call it By Crafty Bootcamp, where I teach knitters how to crochet and crocheters how to knit. And actually we're teaching knitters and crocheters how to do Tunisian right now. So if you're interested in any of that, you can check all that out. Thanks, Allie. Yeah, my website is marleybird.com. You can check it all out there too. Let me see here. This is a Susan Bates crochet hook. It just has a handle on it. I think it's a Lether and Company handle, but it's a Bates crochet hook. Because I crochet so much, you guys, I need bigger hooks, bigger handles to hold on to my hooks. Awesome. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this class. Like I said, give yourself some grace, be patient with yourself. Just know, I'm a professional knitter, but I will be honest with all of you. You guys ready? Here's a little story. The first time I learned to knit, I got so upset with it, I threw it across the room. No lie. I was sitting in bed and I was knitting. My husband was watching TV like this, and I was so mad, I threw it across the room. And he knows I'm a very competitive person. And I had a frenemy. Anybody know what frenemies are? And so my husband is sitting back and he's like clicking on the TV remote. He goes, "How's your knitting going?" I was like, "It's not good." And he was like, "Doesn't so-and-so knit?" And I just looked at him because he brought up the frenemy. And I was like, "Yeah, she does." And I went and I picked up my knitting. I was like, "I'm going to get this." So really it's determination, practice, and time. It'll just click. I often will tell people it's like the matrix all of a sudden becomes clear, and it will just make sense and you'll enjoy it. I hope. So that's it for me, Allie. I know that you have a whole bunch of things you got to say.
Just a reminder to check back at michaels.com/online classes to sign up for future classes, and that this recording will be available on Monday. Check out Michaels' YouTube page where they post all of their recorded videos. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and happy I Love Yarn Day.
I Love Yarn Day.
Bye, everyone.